What is going on, you guys? Alex Chasen back here with a brand new video, and today let's talk about the Chicago Bulls because they are at yet another crossroads of a major question of what are they going to do with their franchise's direction. DeMar DeRozan walked this summer. I hated, and I think most people hated, the way that transpired. They didn't even think to trade him last season or last offseason. Nope. They let his contract run out, and they did a little stupid sign and trade to get a second or a couple second round picks back. Nothing really important. But now, Summer League is over. Matas Buzelis looked about as good as you would want your first round pick to look, and let's not forget, he fell to the 11th pick in Chicago. Everyone thought he'd be a top 6, 7, if not higher pick. And he fell. The Bulls might have, looking back on it in a couple years, 5 years, may have gotten one of the steals of the draft. But point being, he looked about as good as you would want your first round pick to look. Average around 16 points per game. He showed great flashes on the defensive end, around 2 steals, 2 blocks a night. He looked pretty darn good. And he played fantastic for what? Just to come to Chicago and have Zach LaVine and Vucevic, Lonzo Ball, if he actually comes back to the NBA, and just try to compete for a playing spot, taking away valuable rookie experience away from Matas because he's going to be coming off the bench. He's going to be getting touches taken away with Zach LaVine still trying to be the star. And Zach LaVine doesn't want to be there. Vucevic, I doubt, wants to be there. Lonzo Ball, maybe he wants to be there because he hasn't, been in the NBA for 2 years. But really just Zach LaVine and Vucevic, why would they want to be on a rebuilding team? This is a team that is made of 70 to 80% of really young guys in this league trying to make a name for themselves. And it's not anything new that Zach LaVine really actually doesn't want to be in Chicago. From Casey Johnson of NBC Sports Chicago, he recently wrote that both sides are motivated to make a deal and that Chicago's asking price has dropped significantly. That would mean trading him in a cap dump, most likely. That's what it's come down to. That they have waited so long. Everything with management and ownership in Chicago has been really bad ever since they signed DeMar DeRozan. They got Vucevic. Ever since, what, the 2021 year, I believe that's when that all went down. Everything has been just so dysfunctional. And now we're at the point where Zach LaVine got hurt last season. His trade value dropped then significantly. I made a video on that at that time. And now we're at another point where we don't really know how he's going to come back from injury because he's a player that relies on a lot of speed, power, and bounce. He had a lower body injury. Who knows how he's going to come back from that? Most likely he'll probably be fine because he's still relatively young, but who really knows? And now his trade value has dropped so much that it's most likely going to have to be, from this NBC Sports Chicago reporter, most likely in a salary dump situation. That's sad that it's come to this point. And it probably would have inevitably gone to that point anyways, just because for what Zach LaVine is getting paid, he doesn't give that production. He's making $40 million this season, then it jumps up to $45 million, and then it jumps up to almost $50 million in his 26, 27-year player option. That's a lot of money for a guy who is a star, but hasn't truly peaked to that all-star level. And let's just say he does play for Chicago starting the season. He's going to ball hog that ball because the Bulls aren't competing for anything, and he's going to want to get some good tape on himself to boost his trade value for other teams. He's going to want to have the ball as much as possible. He's not going to care about making the right plays for winning. He's going to want to do what's best for him and showing that he still has great talent to be a valuable trade piece to go to a winning team, for some winning team to try to go get him. I've talked about the Warriors before. That could be a possible move to pair him up with Steph Curry because the Warriors, they are in talks with the Jazz for Lauri Markkanen. They are trying to keep Stephen Curry's winning opportunity alive. You could possibly look at someone like Zach LaVine, or you could look at the Clippers. They just lost Paul George for a bag of chips. Actually, not even a bag of chips, for nothing. He walked for free. Actually, the Bulls got a bag of chips for DeMar DeRozan. Paul George, they got about dust. That's all they got for Paul George. Nothing. They let him walk, and now it's just a injured Kawhi Leonard and an up-and-down James Harden. Zach LaVine might be a good fit in LA. But what do both of those situations have in common? A possible trade to Golden State and a possible trade to the Clippers. what they can give back to what they can give back to Chicago is so difficult cap-wise because of Zach LaVine's massive contract that it's almost impossible for either team to make a realistic trade for Zach LaVine. And those are the two teams that have been talked about the most in rumors. Those are at least recently. And those are the two teams that would make some of the most sense for someone like Zach LaVine's play style and just his game. A star to pair up with another star to still try to build for some winning years left with Kawhi and James Harden, and then in the Bay with Stephen Curry. I could see both of those fitting, solidly. Would they win a championship on either side? Probably not, but at least it would allow their winning years to maybe go a little longer. But point being, I was trying to make some mock trades, and there's really nothing neither side can do. The Warriors would have to give up so much that it wouldn't even be worth it. And then for the Clippers, they literally have nothing worth of value. It'd have to be PJ Tucker, Norman Powell, and a bunch of other contracts. And it still almost wouldn't even be enough to match Zach LaVine's contracts. They realistically can't even do it. The Bulls are stuck. They've messed this up from the get-go. I'm not saying giving Zach LaVine this contract because originally it was Zoe, LaVine, DeMar, Vucevic, Patrick Williams, and it worked pretty solidly. I'm not going to lie. It worked pretty well. Alex Caruso, and then Zoe went down. The rest kind of fumbled and fell down from there. But now they're stuck, and they really have to pick a direction. And there are other teams that might come out of the woodworks for someone like Zach LaVine, but those are the two teams on my mind that have been talked about the most in recent times. Of course, there's been a slew of different teams as the months and years have passed, but recently, the Clippers and the Warriors have been two teams that have been talked about the most and also on my mind as well. For Vucevic, it's a little easier of a contract to move. It's 2 years for $40 million, 20 each year, basically. That one I could see being moved. The Warriors are another team that could use he's a low-level star still. They could really use anyone to help boost Stephen Curry's team around him. Look out for the Warriors on that. But it really comes down to what direction do the Bulls want? Because if they keep Zach LaVine, it's going to hinder maybe your future star in Buzelis. It's going to hinder whatever Patrick Williams' development is. You just gave him a bag, and you're probably not going to, give him the ball enough to even see what he can do because you're going to keep these guys around him. It's going to hinder maybe whatever Kobe White's progression can continue to be. It's just confusing what the Bulls are even trying to do. On top of that, just what's that dynamic going to be? I kind of talked about it earlier, so maybe I don't have to go too deep into it. But if you're going to keep guys like Zach LaVine and Vucevic, but really Zach LaVine, I guess let's put the focus on him because he is the main superstar or star of this team. What are these young guys going to view Zach LaVine as? Because they know he doesn't want to be there. They know he wants out. It's just hard to trade such a big contract and just all his big question marks surrounding him. It's going to be hard to trade. So what can these young guys expect? Can they expect Zach to be a real leader of this team and go into work every day with the right mindset? Maybe. I don't know Zach personally, but I feel even as if I was Zach, I'd be like, why would I want to give this all to my team? And that would just create a really bad dynamic with the young guys of this team who are just coming into this league or trying to figure out what they're trying to do. It's just everything is kind of messy in Chicago right now, and keeping Zach LaVine would only aid in that even more. Also, future focused. This is not a playoff team, no matter if Zach's there or not. Maybe they're barely a play-in team if he's there. Why don't you want to focus on your first-round pick for next season? You could compete for a really high pick. If you trade Zach, trade Vooch, you could compete for a top 5 pick and get another player to pair up with Buzelis, to pair up with Kobe White, pair up with whatever Patrick Williams can progress to be. Why not go in that direction? That also confuses me. And I haven't even mentioned his name yet because I've been really focused on Buzelis, but they just traded for Josh Giddey. Let's not forget that. My apologies for not mentioning that sooner. Obviously, it just slipped my mind. I was focused on Buzelis and his development with keeping Zach LaVine. But you just got someone who can, in my opinion, arguably not become a superstar. I think it's been proven that maybe he can't reach that, but at least become a really, really good starting point guard in this league. He has all the attributes of being a good facilitator in this game. Defensively, he has to work on that. Spacing the floor, he definitely has to work on that. That's part of the reason why they traded him for Alex Caruso in OKC. But point being, Josh Giddey, Buzelis, Kobe White, Patrick Williams, I put an asterisk next to his name because I had so much faith for him and he's failed me every single time. Jalen Smith is still young. there are a lot of guys on this team who could use a lot of time on the court. And if you trade away Zach LaVine, trade away Vooch, it would allow them to grow even more. Because there's no expectations on this team, but you're keeping 2 guys, or really 3 guys if you still want to consider Zoe in this conversation, that have expectations of wanting to win. But those are 5 or 6 names on this team that ownership and management need to show they believe in their development. And starting off with, you got to get rid of Zach LaVine. You got to get rid of Vooch. You got to get rid of, or just let Zoe's contract expire this season, whatever. He doesn't really matter. But you got to buy into the youth movement. Stop trying to compete for a play-in spot. The Raptors were doing this for so long, and they finally said, we're done. And they traded Pascal. They brought in RJ Barrett. They brought in Emmanuel quickly. They're buying into Scotty Barnes. They're finally buying into the youth movement. The Bulls got to do that same thing. And I was talking this way about the Raptors for years. Ever since they lost Kawhi Leonard, they were trying to compete for nothing. Small playoff spots or play-in opportunities. The Bulls are doing the same exact thing. Management just has to buy into the youth movement because I believe they have a lot there that can turn into something good in this league. Especially Kobe White. He's already proved that continuing on, if he does from last season, he could turn into an all-star very soon. Josh Giddey, Patrick Williams, Buzelis. I really loved Adam Sanogo in Summer League. I also really loved DJ Stewart in Summer League. Those 2 guys right there. I don't know how much run they'll get in the pros, but Sanogo and Stewart showed immense game in Summer League. Why not give them some run on this team? This team has nothing to play for. Why not give every young guy possible opportunities on this Bulls roster? And it starts by moving LaVine. That's how I'm going to close this. It starts by moving LaVine, even if it's for what you don't want to do. Like it said in that article, it's probably going to end up being a salary dump. That's where it's come. And I think you have drafted, that being Chicago, pretty darn well. I like Buzelis. You also have some good young guys. You brought in Josh Giddey. That was a W trade for the Bulls. I'll give him credit for that. Bringing in Josh Giddey, seeing what he can do on a team that could turn into one of his own. He could become a top 2 or 3 player of this team eventually. That's a great move. Let other guys develop around them. Kobe White, Williams, whatever it may be. Why not let all the young guys possible get minutes and see what you got? And if it fails this year, which it will, you're not going to be a playoff team. Great. Use it on someone who you can then add to this young core and grow from there. That's the direction the Bulls need to go in. And for somehow, some way, they are good this year. Well, if it's after the 10th pick, the San Antonio Spurs get that draft pick. So you guys better be bad, because if you don't have your own first-round pick, like if you fall to 11 like you did this year, that's going to be a Spurs first-round pick, and that would suck. So if that's even any incentive to tank in a way or just buy into the youth movement, that should be it right there. Don't let the San Antonio Spurs have our first-round pick. So anyways, that is all I have for you guys today. It was a little bit all over the place. I guess hopefully you can understand the premise of this video. Buy into the youth movement in Chicago. I'm tired of whatever they're trying to do or whatever they're stuck with. I'm tired of it. Just sell them off, even if it's not what you want in return, because it's at this point, it's too late to try to change it. You already messed up in the past. Zach LaVine should have been gone last offseason at the trade deadline this year, and you didn't. So now you're stuck, and you just gotta sell them off for maybe a bag of chips and buy into this youth movement, because it does look pretty sunny in that youth movement. But while you still have this dark cloud of LaVine and Vooch on the team, it just puts this team in a very awkward and dysfunctional situation. Hopefully you guys did enjoy this video. I'll be back very soon, and like always, peace out.